my name is Grant. I created Lo-Fi, and just for fun, I thought I'd try recording some changes I'm making to Aglio, which is my sort of personal hobby app. It's a groceries and recipes kind of cooking app, which I am building alongside Lo-Fi, both as a proof of concept and then also something I legitimately enjoy and want to use and hope that others do as well. So my goal here is to demonstrate what it looks like to add something new in a lo-fi powered app, kind of top to bottom. So we're going to add something to a data model, create a migration, and then migrate our data, implement the new feature on top of React using the built-in hooks that get generated. So yeah, I guess we'll just jump right in. My whole goal here is just to kind of casually record what I already do when I'm working using Lo-Fi. So the thing I'm going to do is I've got this recipe page here, and I've already added a couple features. I've got the ability to add ingredients to your grocery list, which is on this other page. And I've got the ability to edit it. But right now what I want to do is add a multiplier. So most recipe apps are be able to multiply the ingredients and everything along with that. So I probably won't get into more advanced stuff like, say, detecting the presence of the ingredients in the recipe instructions and multiplying those, but I will do the ingredients themselves, and then also I want to be able to set a multiplier when adding the ingredients to the list. Because I'm using Lo-Fi, I want the multiplier that I apply to the recipe to be persistent and synchronized across everyone looking at it. So this for the kind of recipe, say you have a family of 4 and you have a recipe that only feeds 2, you're always going to be multiplying that by 2. So why not go ahead and save that and sync it to everyone else that's looking at it, all your fellow cooks. But I've talked about this enough, so let's just go ahead and implement it. I really don't think it's going to take long. So I think we'll call this multiplier. And I'm going to add a field to my schema on the recipes collection. You'll see I'm using Copilot here. So it's going to fill in a lot of stuff for me by default. Of course, it's type number, has a default of 1. That all makes sense to me. I don't really think we need anything else here. So I'm going to go ahead and manually increment the version of my schema and save that. Someday I'm going to add the CLI to actually suggest incrementing your schema version if it detects a change, but for now you have to do it manually. So I'll pull up in my CLI, and I have scripts set up to go ahead and run the generation, which will create the new code for me, but that's a lot. It's a lot in that script. Maybe I'll try to make this a little more succinct as well at some point. Sorry, it's this one right here. So generate recipes. So I'm going to go ahead and cd into that. That's React. I'll just run it from my script here. So this is running Lo-Fi, passing in the schema and giving the output directory, and it's passing R for React. And that said, it was successful. You probably saw my app over here reloaded. Not much else changed, so I'm not actually using any of this yet. It did create a migration for me. If I look at my git diff, I've got a v4 over here. Actually, this is the copy of my schema that it created. And then I have the v4 migration. And the default migration just kind of rewrites all of the objects in place. This should update all the indexes. It should populate any defaults. And yeah, that all should work. So now all my recipes in this app, including this one, should already have a multiplier of 1 value set. All right, so let's go ahead and add the actual features. So I'm going to jump into, I have my React app kind of haphazardly grown over time as if this thing has grown with Lo-Fi, so I've been moving things around slowly. You see I have the Lo-Fi code in stores. I'm not sure if I'm totally happy with that pattern. You see the new client got generated and all that stuff. So in the viewer is where I want to add this. So let's add, I think I'll just go ahead and create a component for this. So let's call it recipe multiplier field. What the heck? Try not to struggle too much with naming. You can always rename things later. So I'll go ahead and use a snippet to populate the component. I'm going to pull in the recipe as a prop. One nice thing about Lo-Fi is it generates nice named types for every level of your collections. So I could even get the type for recipe multiplier if I wanted to. It would just be number, but that's all named and typed for you. So this is a new component. So it's just going to receive the recipe, and it'll only re-render if the identity of the recipe changes, which Lo-Fi caches entities, so it won't re-render if I say change the multiplier. So I want to actually set it up to do that. So I'm going to use hooks, which I have exported for my recipes client. These are the generated hooks. So Lo-Fi will generate, since I passed that -r, it will generate React hooks. And basically what I've done here is in the index under stores recipes, I have re-exported the created hooks. So I pull in create hooks, and this should honestly be hoisted up to the top here. I pull in create hooks, and then I create the hooks. Don't know what else to say about that. And then I export them just as one object. So I'll call hooks.use watch. And I have not come up with a better way to do this idiomatically in React. So use watch is kind of an awkward but necessary tool. I'm going to pass in the recipe, and Copilot's already guessing that I only want to watch the multiplier. And that would be the most efficient, but for the sake of the tutorial, maybe I'll just do it the more low-res way. Basically, useWatch is going to let me cause my component to re-render whenever recipe changes. So I will go ahead and destructure that recipe and pull out multiplier. That's the value I care about. And I think for this, I would like a better UX than just like a field at some point. But for now, I'll just do an input. Copilot thinks I'm using Tailwind, but I'm not. So let's just do an input. Input type number, value is going to be a multiplier. And it also thinks I'm using proxies, which I'm not. So we're going to use set multiplier. And does value as number exist, Copilot? Huh. Learn something new every day. That's actually pretty cool. I know that using Copilot and other things is controversial. I don't mean to minimize that. I fully respect the ethical questions around it, but I do find as a developer it has helped me a great deal, not only surfacing things like that, but also just kind of getting me to the meat of things very quickly, which is also my goal with Lo-Fi, which is kind of the purpose of this video, is to show, hey, I'm already implementing this. Like, yeah, I've spent more time talking than coding, and definitely haven't written too many lines of code at all. Anyway, let's go ahead and close this terminal that's in the way. So let's add our, you see I had my release open. I had a little snafu, which is why I had to edit the video, where useWatch was broken, and so I had to go release a fix for that. Luckily, that was pretty simple. So where do I want to put this thing? I'll put it, for now, I'll just put it add under add to list. So just be multiplier field, pass in that recipe. And here it is. So cool. I can increment, I can decrement, and one would assume if I reload, yep, still 3. So that's being set on the recipe, that's being synced to Lo-Fi, stored in IndexedDB. And if I were, just for fun, to open this in another browser with another user, I would see this incrementing and decrementing in real time as I change it. So, I mean, that's just like the magic of local first and synchronized CRDTs. Just out of the box, you get so much fun. You see, all I had to do was put an input and add a field to my schema. Cool. Well, that's working, but it's not actually hooked up to the ingredients. So I'm setting a value on the recipe, but it's not affecting anything. So let's go ahead and add that to the ingredients. So I've already got the recipe in here. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to pull the multiplier out of the recipe, and that should update live across my whole app, so I don't need to worry about any other synchronization there. And this is actually the most complicated part, is the UX. So my ingredients in my schema are stored as objects. These objects include text, unit, food, quantity, comments, etc. Right now I'm only displaying the text, which makes sense if, like, basically my whole philosophy for displaying ingredients in Aglio has been show the original as much as you can until you need to programmatically transform it, like I'm doing now, and then show the deconstituted, I don't know how to say it, the constituent parts formed into something semantically meaningful. So in this case, like pulling out the quantity, defaulting to 1, multiplying that by the multiplier, and then showing, 2 garlic instead of just garlic, which is, still awkward, but the best we can do with just a single food word like salmon. I'll have 2 salmon. If I had put in fact, maybe I'll just go ahead and do this. 1 pound of salmon instead. So I'll toss that out, pop that in, let's put it back in its original place. So 1 pound of salmon would of course turn into 2 pounds of salmon, which is nice. I think probably the way that this pluralization works, it'll probably be 2 pounds of salmons. Maybe I fixed that bug. I actually think I fixed that bug recently. Anyway, not important. So yeah, basically want to say if the multiplier is not 1, then I want to render something different, which to me feels like it's time to pull this out into its own component. Recipe ingredient. You know you can't spell when you're broadcasting things. Key. I'm actually doing something kind of hacky with the keys right now. I need to actually pull that into the proper lo-fi typings. So look for that soon, I guess. So Copilot's going to guess what I want to do. That's fine. And yeah, I do want to watch the ingredient. How did you know? Recipe, ingredients, item. So there's that typing coming in handy. I know exactly what I want here, and I already have a defined type for it. So text, I'll just go ahead and use the destructured stuff. Oh, these have IDs. Yeah, I don't need to use this. Sorry. So yeah, I don't need this key anymore because it's now cased in its own component. All right, so now we're back where we were, but better structured for React. And I'll just pass the multiplier in. That will be easier than hooking it in here. I feel like that will just be awkward. If I need it, I'll refactor it later. All right, so now I'm getting a multiplier as well. So, like I said, if multiplier is not equal 1, then we want to do something a little more interesting with this. Copilot's already guessing at it, but I'm going to clean it up a little bit. So quantity, unit, and what, food? Yeah, food. So I guess I was just saying I've fixed the bug with the pluralization, but I'm actually going to have to redo that work here and maybe extract it to a common area in some other time. I fixed it in the grocery list. Not obviously, I haven't even written this part yet, so I haven't fixed it here yet. Um, but yeah, like maybe like an ingredient or like representation component could extract this behavior into a commonplace. But for now, I'll just duplicate it. Always duplicate first and then extract. Makes it much clearer what problem you're trying to solve. Okay, cool. So this is the most naive way, obviously. Quantity times multiplier. Quantity will default to 1 because of the way I've set everything else up. And then unit, and then food. So I want to pluralize the unit. I have pluralized library here, and I don't want to pluralize the food. And there may not be a unit, so I don't know. That seems fine. Okay, cool. So now if I increment, there we go. 2 pounds salmon, look at that. So it instantly transforms from the shorthanded version, and then it expands all of the components out and multiplies and pluralizes. And it gives the long form of pounds because that's what it knows the unit is. So yeah, that is the whole feature basically. And that's how lo-fi works. So I mean, everything's reactive across the board. I change the multiplier up here, I get the output down here, and then all of that gets stored across reloads and synchronized across all my devices. That's the basics, and I hope it's at least a good introduction. Maybe I'll make some more videos like this in the future. I think the magic of this library really shines forth when you actually get into using it. The bootstrapping, I think, still could use some improvement. It takes a little bit to get off the ground, I think, and learn concepts of how do you generate the client and like how do you structure a schema and all that stuff. But once you've got something in place, you can see I created a migration which can be applied across devices at any time in the future, distributed. And that migration changed my data model. I got typings for that data model, and then I use those typings to implement a feature very easily with a bunch of React hooks that I didn't have to write myself. Yeah, so hope that helps. Go create some cool stuff.